Bench Opinions. Three idiots with amateur analysis.
Hi and welcome to Bench Opinions. If you don't know us already, this is Dominic, myself, I am Klaus, and we are missing Maxi. Maxi is out in South Africa playing golf. Shame, poor guy, must be tough.
It's like to get the three of us in a room these days is like an audience with the Pope.
Yeah, finally Dominic is back. He's a jet setter himself. And for anybody who doesn't know this channel, we discuss all things rugby. And this weekend was a weekend of derby URC rugby.
Yeah. Everyone taking on each other, feuds in the family. Very cool to see. I think derby weekends, particularly in South Africa, seem to get the crowds really excited and people get quite up for it. I think it's also nice because it doesn't matter where you sort of live. I think Europeans will maybe not relate as much, but in Europe, you definitely support the team that's connected to your locality, very much so. I think if you're from Galway, you're going to have to support Connacht. I think any other way is a bit strange. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I feel like in South Africa, there are just a lot of Lions fans that live in Cape Town, and there's a lot of Stormers fans that live in Joburg, and Durban is filled with all sorts of color. I mean, Durbanites are usually very staunch Sharks fans.
100%.
But it's cool to see, and that means the stadiums were pretty full as well. I mean, Shark Tank sold out, which I think is a massive, massive plus for them. The vibe was insane. I mean, we can get into that now. So definitely a derby weekend that brought out the best in the South African fans, and I'm sure in Italy as well. For example, I know Zebre played Benetton. It looked like a pretty good battle and a pretty good game of rugby there too.
Yeah, let's get right into the crowd situation. South Africa, the two games were obviously the Stormers taking on the Lions in Cape Town, and then at the Shark Tank, the Bulls try to topple the Sharks, which didn't go their way. But just to go back onto the fans, obviously Cape Town is a very accessible stadium, so the turnout there is always great. Everybody's down at the coast, especially in Cape Town over the sort of festive period now. So a very good turnout there. But the Shark Fest, which had been... I think we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, where they had put out this massive post about the Shark Fest is going to be this, that. The next thing is going to be so amazing, and the Bulls are really going to shiver in their boots because we're coming for you. And then they did. Yeah,
look, I mean, the funny thing about the Sharks is there's always been this weird... this is what I associate to the Sharks. They've always been sort of the most kind of commercial team in the sense that there's always been this like taste of like them trying different things. At least that's what I remember from growing up as well. And also the fact that they always had the very like prominent logo, and like they called their team the Sharks, and they had the mascot and all those kind of things. It's kind of what I associate to Sharks. So it is very in their DNA to do something like this.
I associate Mr. Price with it.
That's Mr. Price as well. Those are the two things. Or for people that are fancy, Monsieur Prize. But so there is there's that for sure. But very good to see. I mean, filling the Shark Tank is not easy. Filling any of the South African stadiums is not easy because they're big facilities. You know, I think the Shark Tank's also 50,000, something around there, and it was absolutely packed. And then to add to that, just the vibe. They did not stop partying, and obviously the team turned it on, so that helped. But it was just a constant. It sounded like Sister Bettina was on like repeat in that stadium.
I don't know when these renovations took place, but the South Stand had been redone, and now I blank on what the name of that bar is called, but somebody in the comments will tell us. But the bar had been extended. Essentially, the one side you've got the pool side, and on the other side you've got the bar, and the bar is now the entire stand, essentially. The DJ is right next to the bar at the top, so he's got probably one of the better views of the entire stadium. And as you said, the vibe was just off the chain.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think also maybe you're starting to see a little element of the American kind of ownership of the Sharks, looking to really turn it into a spectacle. I think that's a big criticism of rugby in general. If you're trying to grow it in America or for American audiences, that there's not enough breaks. The entertainment factor is not there, that you see in NFL. So maybe it just turns into like an 80-minute or in some cases 115 minutes, depending on how many stoppages they are or how many breaks they are to check things. Maybe it does turn into like maybe they're onto something here because let's be honest, the players obviously have to hear themselves, but it's not like golf where people are going to raise an eyebrow if you're playing music the whole time or trying to really create an atmosphere. So maybe they really are onto something here with the Sharks.
I mean, for anybody who's gone to a rugby game in South Africa, they will know that, guys are out in the parking lot, braaiing on a skottel, a gas Bunsen burner for anybody who's not South African. And so you've already got that similarity to tailgating, I think it's called in the States.
Yeah. They also drive trucks.
They also
Buckies.
drive buckies. So
maybe it's the bridge is not as far as we thought. Actually,
it's maybe not a Ford F-150, but it's a Toyota Hilux twin cab,
exactly,
and the like. So there's a lot of similarities. Everybody's drinking brandy. I know that the podcaster, or not podcaster, but the rugby show guy, Egg Chasers, Tim, he was there and he was giving sort of a behind the scenes of what it's like, and he was running up and down the south stand and running through the parking lot, having brownies with everybody, little springbokkies, which is amarula and a bit of like peppermint liqueur. And I think it really showcased, maybe for an international audience, what the vibe is like at a Shark Fest or just during the festive season. I mean, it would be amazing if these things could happen every weekend, but realistically, nobody's got the money for that. So it's great to see that's how it turned out, and then the weather was good at both locations, so that they could have a good game. Let's go into the actual game itself. Maybe let's just start with the Shark Tank, because that's where we've been talking about the whole time. The Bulls went down to Durban, took on the Sharks. The Sharks not having had a good start to the URC. And the Bulls, you would think, have the personnel and they have history, or very recent history, to play well and do well. They couldn't beat a Sharks team that has now lost their coach, is in a bit of turmoil.
Well, I mean, I think the theme for a lot of the games this week is what a difference, in the case of the Sharks, what a difference 10 days makes. 2 weeks makes.
Right.
I think it just actually makes it even more farcical that they hung on to John Plumtree for so long. We criticized him for a long time, and it was just so obvious to us that there must be a coaching error, or there must be an approach error in terms of the management of that team to have such poor performances. Even when they were winning, there was just no inkling of anything convincing about their performances. And literally, 2 weeks afterwards, the resurgence is phenomenal. And I think if you can point towards individuals to see sort of the collective growth in the side. For example, Jaden Hendrickse came on, someone who's been a shadow of himself, and he came on and was unbelievable and changed the game. Jordan Hendrickse, his brother, I felt had a solid game. And all of a sudden, people like Sia having fantastic games, showing up and getting over the line. And I think, hats off to the Sharks. Don't know the Sharks management. Don't know why they waited so long. And let's see what this means for JP Peterson, because he's someone that came in. They very much spoke about in the public eye, saying, it looks like it's going to be a sort of interim situation. I think, like with every interim coaching position, if you watch any sport, it's essentially a job interview. I would think
assignment.
Exactly, a case study.
There.
And I think, let's see, Neil Powell now also moving to a more operational role, less of a sort of director of rugby position. So whatever they've done, it seemed to have sparked something. And I think it was just a matter of time, and maybe even just a lack of confidence that meant they couldn't quite get themselves going. But and now it's an ominous shadow in the distance, or an ominous shadow in the water in this case, for the rest of the URC, because their personnel is just unbelievable.
You really saw the Springboks in that team stand up and show a different sort of side of them that you haven't seen in a long time. Somebody like Siya Kolisi had said at the end of the Autumn International Series, he said, "I'm excited to be going back down to SA to go play club rugby." He said, "I am embarrassed about our current performance of the Sharks." And he said, "I'm embarrassed because also us as players, we need to look at ourselves, and we're not bringing our level." And he was definitely somebody who did bring his level back. He essentially played like he does for the Springboks.
Yeah, in sport, I think it's always a bit of a dance between, or chicken and egg scenario, whichever analogy you want to use when you're looking at trying to gain confidence. Do you play your way into confidence? As players, do you just play your way there, and then all of a sudden you ooze confidence and you ooze belief, and then the results start to come? Or is it a case of a coach, or in this case, what Sia's saying, players really saying, to themselves, galvanizing themselves and having the belief in order to put out performances. I think it's always a little bit of give and take there. And clearly, whatever John Plumtree was doing, and let's see how long it lasts. I think, there's always this whole, in football, they call it the new manager bounce. There's always this kind of knee-jerk reaction when something new comes in, change is as good as a holiday. So guys tend to do pretty well. But I think from that perspective, whatever was there and whatever was happening, maybe even, a change generally. Eban's out the picture now for an extended period of time. I'm not saying that he would have had a negative impact on the squad. I think very much the opposite. But all of these changes maybe just means that they feel like they're in a new space and they've turned a page.
Yeah. Let's not take anything away from the Bulls because they are a good team. Also, new coach, so, they're going through some teething issues, I'm sure. Two standout players for me were Rudolph, who just week on week seems to be playing incredible rugby. He looks ancient, so I don't know if he would ever be a contender for the Springboks jersey. But somebody who I do think in the future would be considered as a Springbok, Sebastian de Klerk.
Yeah, phenomenal. He's just you never look at Sebastian de Klerk and go, he gets into a Springbok team. I'm just saying, like on quick overview, like a quick gloss over. And I think that does him a lot of injustice. His pure speed is unreal, and I think that's something that maybe these days in the sort of the modern ilk of a winger, pure gas often, I wouldn't say is overlooked, but the fact that a guy can pin his ears back and is just quicker than everyone else on the pitch as a winger is a massive asset to have. And I think Mapimpi showed signs of that in his career as well. Maybe the modern winger has kind of moved to someone that has to add a lot of more sort of strings to their bow. But I think that's the big standout thing. But he just does the basics fantastically well. And the question will be if Rassie doesn't look to someone more traditional on the wing long term. I fear for him though. I just don't see it happening. I think for him, but he's definitely someone that's playing at a level that would justify a call up consistently as well. I would argue last 2-3 seasons. Yeah. But for the Bulls, interesting. I saw a lot of noise on social media. Obviously, it's social media and it's X, and people are trying to be funny. But quite a lot of references to it's not so bad. Jake White wasn't so bad after all, And who are these players? Who are the players that led the mutiny? Because maybe they're the problem. Interesting though. It just shows you. I think there was a lot of maybe irrational excitement for Ackerman coming in, for him to just all of a sudden turn them into this behemoth, which they are, and I think they'll come right, and I think you'll see them in the playoffs, and then anything can happen. But it does, as you said, it does take time. And there also, it looks like a sort of lack of confidence. I wouldn't say playing a very conservative brand of rugby, but Pollard's boot doing all the talking for them pretty much. So let's see where that goes. I think Bulls fans have to remain calm though. I think Ackerman will definitely get them firing.
It's interesting to see in South Africa, we're so used to get yourself into a position where you can milk a penalty within the opposition's half, kick for 3, reset, do the same thing, kick for 3. Very seldomly will we actually try and aggressively go for tries unless we've got the scoreboard advantage, or if we have a sort of what's it called, like a when you suddenly get the ball and in broken
Steal.
play. Yeah, like an intercept or just broken play that we were able to capitalize on that. But you look at the Sharks and how they're starting to play, they're getting aggressive with we want tries. And no team more so than the Stormers. The Stormers are always going for tries. They're not relying on Sasha or Mattia or Manu Lubbock before he moved. They're not relying on their boot. Maybe it's because they're not great kickers, but they are always pushing for tries, and so are the Lions. Do you think there's a shift, or do you think it's just those especially the Lions and the Stormers, or do you think the Sharks are also in that mindset of no, we want tries?
I think obviously, again, I think it comes back to confidence, and I think it really is. I think the Bulls, you can see they look like a team that are kind of trying to figure out where they're at. And I think that's why in those kind of situations, you tend to knee-jerk go for the 3 points because, again, points of the board, no one can take that away from you. And scoreboard, the scoreboard element of rugby is like any other sport. That does the talking. So I think that's more the thing about it. And I think the Bulls do have more of a traditional DNA. They always have had. I find, in the way they play rugby. So I think that's, I don't know, again, it's a dance of like, I think you're just so much happier tossing the egg around to toss the egg around and take risks when you feel like you're confident and you've got front football, and maybe that's it. I don't know if it's a DNA thing, and I think also inevitably with the Springboks changing the way they're playing rugby, and we're going to get to sort of summing up the year a little bit, but the way the Springboks have sort of evolved, I think it'll bleed into the way the rugby's played in the franchises for sure.
Let's just move down south for a couple of minutes and talk about the Stormers versus Lions. So the Stormers beat the Lions 34-27, which is, considering what the Lions have in terms of resources and capabilities, is a pretty close game. The Lions actually coming out first and scoring. Ruan Venter, I think he was in your fantasy team, having a really, really good game.
I hope he was. I forgot to update my fantasy team. So
I think I remember seeing him in your fantasy team.
That's good.
The Lions seeming to do pretty well for about 50 to 60 minutes and then just not being able to sort of keep up with the pace.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's just such a pity for the Lions. And I mean, I was speaking to someone over the weekend and I said, I like the Lions, but I actually can't get excited for the derbies because the Lions don't have a chance in my eyes of ever becoming more than they are, and they're going to always be that plucky outfit that kind of just tries to punch above their weight, to be honest. And as soon as guys get good enough, they're going to move on, And so that's exactly where I feel they're at, is exactly this result. Is like they're very much punching above their weight. They're very much scrapping it. But unfortunately, it's just that the thing that stops me from being like, I'm the biggest Lions fan in the world, is that next step is just not there. Holistically, but also in a game like this, just too much firepower on the side of the Stormers.
And the Stormers winning yet another game, I think that means they go, 7 for 7 in terms of wins for the URC. But are they now the outright sort of contenders?
Well, I spoke about what a difference 2 weeks makes, but what a difference a year makes for the Stormers. I think last season was disappointing.
Well, even just the Currie Cup where they finished stone last.
Yeah, of course. Last. I think that's another interesting element in all of this, is that they've promoted a lot of players from God knows where, particularly in that forward pack, because their Currie Cup team was abysmal. Finishing, I think, last or second last. Sharks and them were wrestling for that wooden spoon in terms of being last in the Currie Cup. For anyone who doesn't know, the Currie Cup is our sort of very grassroots local rugby competition, domestic competition. So it's not the franchise form; it's more actually the local unions playing. I mean, it's all the same thing, but you know what I mean. But yeah, and it just. I think the Stormers have always been a team that have a very exciting backline, and they tend to try and play expansive rugby. I think we were talking about the Bulls' DNA. I think that's the Stormers' DNA. Has always been an exciting backline, toss the ball around. Their fans, I personally believe their fans are the best fans in South Africa. They've always been, the province, shouting province with the hand in the, your fist clenched in the air. They've always been really up for it, and they've seen some dark times over the years as well. So I think that's always been kind of the brand, is like toss it around, get us excited. That's all we care about. And now you've kind of seen that coupled with this forward pack that is just unbelievable. And they've done that by promoting players, which is even more exciting. If you look at their options in the front row with, Ollie Reed, Sandy, Porten, these are all young guys that are playing, I would argue, their first fully fledged professional season of rugby.
I mean, Zachary Porten was playing Varsity Cup at the beginning of the year.
And I think that, and then you've got someone like Paul de Villiers who's looks brilliant. I mean, if he's not in a Springbok jersey next year, I would be very surprised. Just the level of his performances week in, week out. And again, another guy that we say just does the basics, so well. I think that's interesting to see. And then you've coupled that with the flair of someone like Evan Royce, and then Sasha Feinberg and KwaMazulu just signed a new deal, which is very, very good for South African rugby, I think.
Yeah, till
2029. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that keeps him here. I think that probably keeps him here until he then decides to make the move wherever he wants to go. And someone really said it. He could probably have picked his next club of choice, and probably could have, I wouldn't say a blank check, but pretty close to it in terms of what he would earn, and he decided to stay in Cape Town. And I think it's a very mature decision from him, and it's the right decision, and I'm sure Rassie and the guys would have definitely had a hand in telling him, listen, this is where we see your plan, and this is how we see you going. So yeah. Sorry, I digress a little bit. But that's the thing about the Stormers, is that they've just found this way to couple, a fantastic forward pack with inevitable talent in the back line. And also just some astute business. Someone like Mart as well, on loan from the Griquas. He's not going back to the Griquas, let's be honest.
I don't think so.
And that's just fantastic business. It's just smart ways to kind of find gems and keep growing that side. And so, yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be hard to stop. I think, particularly also because of, your Leinster's kind of also being in a weird state. Obviously very hard to beat on their day, Leinster, and arguably I still argue probably the best team in this competition. But just if you look at where the confidence is, where the teams are at, and momentum, I think it's difficult to see the Stormers not getting to a final.
Yeah, I mean, Munster also being quite dominant in this competition so far. So I think you got that old rivalry. I mean, it's like 5 years old, but that 5-year-old rivalry between Stormers and Munster looks like, on paper, if you look at it right now, looks like that could be the final game, if all goes to plan. That's of course.
Yeah. Talk us through some of the other results. Maybe let's have a look at that the leaderboard then.
So in terms of the games, we had Leinster Ulster, 24 to Leinster, 20 to Ulster. Cardiff versus Scarlets. I actually thought Cardiff was going to take this one. 17-21 to the Scarlets. Benetton Zebre, the Italian derby, that went 21-15 to the Benettonese. I don't know if you can say that.
I think so. That's how you say it.
In Scotland, we had Glasgow versus Edinburgh, 24-12 to Glasgow. And Ospreys versus Munster, 10-26 to the visiting team Munster. Dragons versus Connacht, 48-28. I think that is the biggest upset of the URC season.
True. I think there was one Zebre result that shocked all of us as well, but that must be right up there. The thing is, Connacht's a weird one for me. First of all, these poor guys have been playing in like a stadium that's under construction for so long.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for them but the stadium seems to be very close to finish, if not already finished. So that I think will do a lot for getting people into the stadium. They've built a whole new stand and it's pretty impressive actually. So that's nice to see. But it's always sort of Connacht and Ulster seem to kind of rotate in terms of struggling to kind of find their way in the Irish sort of setup. Big news for Connacht. They've signed Frawley for next season. Mm-hmm. So he's moving over from Leinster. I think that's a fantastic move for Frawley because he's just been in the shadows at Leinster for too long, I would argue. And I would say it probably is a great thing for Ireland as well because I think...
Get him more game time.
Yeah, get him more game time, keep creating competition for positions because the debate about 10 should not be raging anymore, in my opinion, between Crawley and Prendergast. But I think because Frawley just is not getting the game time and not being put in the shop window, I think it just keeps Prendergast in the frame longer.
Yeah.
And I think you have to, I think it'll be very interesting.
It's very tricky with their names. Crawley, Frawley, Crowley.
Yeah.
Prendergast.
O'Brien, O'Driscoll. All of them.
Yeah, I think the Dragons had one of those games where everything just clicked. Every ball went to hand, every bounce bounced in the right direction, and you could see as soon as the guys got a bit of a sniff, their confidence level was shot through the roof, and that just enables you to play even better rugby.
I wonder what it is. Maybe it's just the dying embers of the two teams that are going to be cut in the Dragons and the Scarlets just trying to show up to try and save themselves,
Cut Cardiff, we can do it.
Exactly. But I mean, nice to see them because Welsh rugby just needs some sort of positivity, and I think Cardiff will always be a fixture just because that's where Irish rugby is based and it's the capital. I'm sorry, Welsh rugby is based.
Yeah. Let's have a quick look at the top 8. We have the Stormers in first, Munster, Cardiff, Glasgow, Ulster, Leinster, Lions, and then the Bulls are behind them.
Yeah, some work to do. Definitely some work to do there for the Bulls. But I think there's inevitability. I think, maybe we head towards a year where all 4 South African teams get into it again.
I mean, that would be amazing, but currently it looks like the Bulls are on the chopping block.
Yeah.
I'm just going to quickly run through the rest. Connacht, Benetton, Edinburgh, Sharks.
Yeah.
Sorry, so Bulls are in. Sharks are the ones struggling. Zebre, Dragons, Scarlets, Ospreys. So you've got the Scarlets and the Ospreys right down at the bottom of the pack. Even though the Scarlets have one more win than the Dragons, bonus points.
So those bonus points.
Those bonus points.
I think I remember Cardiff did really well with bonus points last year as well. The Welsh love collecting bonus points.
Even if it's a losing bonus point, it's a bonus point. You got to stay in it to win it.
Exactly.
Or to lose it, I guess. Cool. URC over for the year, I think. I don't know if there's another game.
No, that's it.
I don't think so. Let's look at the international, or actually just rugby year in general. International, club rugby, whatever you like. Obviously, it's the end of the year, so we're going to do a bit of a roundup. Let's start with, how would you sum up the year of rugby in one word?
One word. I had 2 words actually, but no, we have to.
Give me a phrase then.
Identity crisis.
Oh, okay.
Which would be and I think this is in reference to just generally the state of play. You know, like where we were asking questions all year about what do New Zealand and Australia do next with the Super Rugby? Do they remain competitive? I think the answer there is very clearly they're not as competitive as they used to be. I think we can now deduce that. And how do they counteract that? Same thing within sort of the Northern Hemisphere South African setup with URC. I think the European competition, I wasn't here for the 2 episodes where you guys discussed a lot of the European stuff. I think there's very much an identity crisis going on. How do you make it work in terms of a schedule? But B, is it really what everyone wants? From those from the extra European competition. And then URC, I think, is the one light that I would say is not in crisis. There's not a question of identity. I think the URC has really come into the fore. But I think identity is a big thing for rugby. And then you can move that over to, where's rugby union at? And, from a rules perspective, refereeing, there's a massive identity crisis going on there, or a question of identity. What kind of product does rugby want to be moving forward? Obviously, on the one hand, we want to protect people, we want to make sure players are safe, but on the other hand, there's been a lot of farcical refereeing decisions that have consistently led to us sitting on this couch and not talking about the game of rugby, which I think is something that has to be addressed. So for me, identity is kind of the one word phrase to sum up rugby in 2025.
Nice. For me, it would be busy.
Mm-hmm.
I think you look at the Springboks having played 15 games, the Australia played 15 international games. You had the Lions tour. You obviously then had the last rugby championship for a while, or at least the last complete rugby championship for a while. And then, as you have every year, you then include the Six Nations at the beginning of the year, and then you also had the Women's World Cup. So there was a lot of rugby on top of all of the domestic leagues and club championships or club leagues. So I think it's a lot. I mean, it's great for us as spectators. We get to watch rugby all year round, but I think for the players and for the competitions, it sometimes doesn't work in its favor. I think having a European Championship where you play a couple games, then you take a break again for another competition, then you play a couple games and you take a break. You never really stay in it mentally as a fan and with your heart, so that you kind of lose interest a little bit. You're like, oh, okay, well, the round robin stage at this point is irrelevant, right? Because most teams of each pool are going through. 4 out of 6 teams go through. So you're like, it's irrelevant. You kind of know from looking at the teams on paper who's going to go through. So you're not going to watch those games because there's so much other rugby on. So what everybody's been saying for years now, you need an international calendar.
True. Yeah. And I think, honestly, these 2 headings that we've chosen play into each other for sure. And I mean, honestly, the last point you mentioned about the pools in the various competitions, I guess it's an inevitability, and it's a path you have to walk if you're trying to grow the game. But honestly, the way the new pool stages work at the next upcoming Rugby World Cup has me questioning whether I want to go or not. Because the pool stages are just not interesting.
Just irrelevant,
I don't want to go watch South Africa absolutely maul Romania and then play Italy in the standout game in the pool stage. You know, so it's a very busy calendar. How do you navigate that calendar, and there an important thing is this is who we are as World Rugby, plays into identity. What do we want to be? What is the product? How do we get there?
Yeah.
So yeah, let's see what 2026 holds.
We're not going to figure that out on the couch right now.
I
in
can,
this moment.
but it's going to cost some money. Call me.
Let's move over to your moment of the year.
Moment of the year for me, rugby moment of the year is Wellington.
Okay.
The Springbok win in Wellington, 43-10. I think the score was. I think it just had such a seismic impact on world rugby and international rugby and the state of play, because not only did the Springboks find a new identity, I would say, or way of playing rugby in that game, but they also, the switch in personnel and the stars that emerged was just crazy. I mean, it was we spoke about what a difference a year makes, what a difference a week made in that sense. But it was also something that it was like a domino, the first domino stone that I think fell in sort of unleashing what was then a very dominant year for the Springboks, playing a new style of rugby, and then really sending some of the other sides across the world into a flat spin, really. New Zealand, a lot of question marks. That game definitely didn't help some of the doubts around Razor already, and we saw it kind of bleed into the rest of the year. And the same can be said for even up north, what it sort of set in motion, because I think England kind of smelt blood in the water in that sense, because they could see that New Zealand, there was an ability for them to kind of emerge as the big pretenders and contenders for the number one side in the world and try and take on South Africa. And they definitely used that opportunity. So I think Wellington for me is that big moment of the year where you go, okay, well, this is where everything kind of shifted.
Yeah. For me, it's Henry Pollock's TikTok dance.
Nice.
No, I'm kidding. I'm actually going to go with the Women's World Cup, and in particular the Springbok ladies. Yes, they didn't perform at a high level like England or Canada or the likes, or New Zealand, for example. But considering that there's no real professional league in South Africa, considering that they are not really yet fully professional rugby players, and the way that they went out and performed with their coach, Zebre, and the rest of the coaching staff, the fact that in the warm-up game they beat the All Blacks, whether that be a second string team or not, I think the whole world, especially women's rugby, looked at them and went, oh shit, there's a juggernaut of rugby coming after us, a sleeping giant, if you will. And I think in the years to come, I think it's going to be a very, very entertaining brand of rugby that they play, and I think it's going to be a very entertaining team.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also it's brilliant to see just such a bona fide commitment to try and make women's rugby work in South Africa. Someone like Zebre going out there and saying, I'm going to commit to try and to play my part. I think that's definitely that's been the X factor, and that's been the change and the shift for the woman, for sure.
Yeah. Let's go into onion and apple of the year for you.
Yeah, explain to people. We're not hating on onions, because this is what Maxi always says.
Oh my God, Maxi thinks he loves onions more than apples. I've never seen him eat an onion.
Yeah, also, you don't bite into an onion.
Yeah.
Anyway, so for everyone that doesn't understand the concept of apple and onion, essentially you pick, apple is obviously the highlight or your personal thing that you loved, and the onion is the thing that maybe disappointed you and you didn't like. That's essentially it. My apple would honestly be beating Ireland.
Okay.
I think that's just my personal apple, because it just finally put to bed a lot of the sort of, I think at least put to bed now for a little bit over a while, like the question marks around the quarterfinal in 2023. And the Irish always pretend that this is not a rivalry, and we have 4 other sports, and this is not even the 5th most watched sport in our country.
But then at the same time, they'll let you know that in the last 6 games they beat us 4
exactly
times.
And that they were robbed in that quarterfinal in 2023, and that they're actually the best side in the world. And we'll sit here and say, hey, but the team doesn't look like it's a team that's on the up and up. It very much looks like an aging team that needs to kind of reinvent itself.
Yeah.
And I think that just got confirmed. So for me, that's sort of a little personal apple, because it really grated me. The weird game that they played the whole time, pretending that it doesn't matter when it clearly did, or it would have mattered if they'd won. Let's put it that way. So that's my apple. And I think my onion is the World Cup draw for 27. And what I mentioned earlier is that there's this weird feeling that I have that it's just a pity. I love the fact that there's an extra knockout game that's been won and gained through this. It just is a pity that, with someone like me that was very much had an eye on going, and the group kind of fixtures being sort of the more attainable target in terms of going, I think it is a little bit disappointing.
You win the extra knockout round at the loss of jeopardy in the pool stages.
Exactly, and I think there's a lot to be gained moving forward. And I think this is the little pill to swallow now, that they have to do it. That maybe they lose, until your Chiles and Zimbabwe's and Romania's and even Georgia's of the world, before they become just, hopefully inevitably just better. It is a bit disappointing for sure.
Yeah.
That they just, if you look at even the last World Cup, who did we play? We played Ireland and Scotland.
Yep.
In the group phases.
Yeah.
I mean, now we've got Romania, Italy, and someone else of very little significance.
Georgia?
Yeah. Romania, Georgia.
And Italy. Yeah.
And it's not arrogance in the slightest. You can look at any pool and think to yourself, well, the lead side is getting through that,
Yeah.
Or the two top teams are easily getting through that. In the case of our pool, it might be quite interesting to see Georgia, Italy battle it out.
But even there, you would think Italy
exactly.
would
So that's the disappointing. That's my onion for sure.
No.
Leaves a weird taste in the mouth, as do onions.
As do onions. So for me, the apple would be, and this goes for both of us because we were very lucky, including Maxi, to be able to go to the France game and to the Italy game. But in particular, the France game, the Paris game, where we managed to beat the French with 14 men on the field.
Yeah.
Obviously, very disappointing in the sense that we would have loved to have seen a full team play. But the fact that they were able to do it with a man less is very impressive, and to be able to see that live and go like, "Oh shit, we were there in that moment." That was pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, and just such a sign of the kind of team and people that Rassie has that form the Springbok side. Just to be able to overcome that adversity. And I think every time you think, oh, okay, well, this is going to be the knockout blow here. And it's a similar feeling I had in Italy. When we went down to 14 men early doors, I thought, oh, here we go. Because I was like, there's no way we can do this 2 weeks in a row.
No.
And it was actually a canter in the end.
It was a little bit like the World Cup where we won back to back with 1 pointers. In this case, we then won back to back.
And ironically, it's something that's held against the Springboks. Those 1 point victories in that World Cup, saying, "Oh well, they didn't deserve it; they got lucky." But if you keep doing something consistently, if you keep overcoming adversity or difficult situations or edging out opponents, no matter what's thrown at you, I believe that's called being pretty good. And I think that's the thing I would argue, is that they've just, whatever he does in crucial, critical moments or in response to crucial, critical moments, Rassie Erasmus and the management team, as well as the players, tend to find a response.
Isn't there that old saying of success is when preparation and luck meet?
Yeah. And or as Gary Player said, you make your own luck.
Well, there you go. You do make your own luck, and the better you are, the more luck falls in your favor. And any game, whether that be rugby, tennis, squash, who knows which other games exist. I mean, I know that there are other games, but that's regardless. Luck is always going to be a factor. It's going to be luck of the bounce of the ball, luck of are you looking to the sun in the right moment and miss a catch, all of those sort of things. And at the end of the day, if you are better, luck will fall in your favor. Also on that apple, Seo Kolisi's 100th test match, also a very special occasion for us to be there. And the light show at Stade de France is unreal. So seeing him come out to this alleyway of fireworks and pyrotechnics was pretty impressive. My onion is disappointment. I had high hopes for Australia. I thought they were on the up and up. I thought after Test 2, during the British and Irish Lions series, I thought after Test 2, I was like, oh shit, they are actually coming back. Test 3, they win. Everybody says, yeah, the British and Irish Lions were partying so hard, they were tired, they were fatigued. But the British and Irish Lions came out and said, we want a clean sweep. We want to win all 3. And they didn't.
And Australia won more halves of rugby in that tour. And that's the reality of it, And I know I said scoreboard, so everyone relax. I know scoreboard is what matters at the end. But the reality is, if you just look at the whole series, the Australians won more halves of rugby. So it was there for them to take it,
Yeah, they were not out of it. Even in Ellis Park, massive upset for the Springboks, right? They played 22 minutes of the best rugby they've ever played, and then they got absolutely smashed by Australia. Then Australia went down to New Zealand, beat New Zealand in New Zealand, I think it was. Or was it at home? I can't remember that anymore.
No, I think they played them at Eden Park and lost, and then I think they beat them in Australia. No?
Right, okay.
I think so. Don't quote me.
But they showed so much promise at the beginning of the international season, or our beginning of the international season, and then it just never really came to fruition. And if anything, at the end of the year, it almost seemed like they were left in a worse spot than when they began.
Ironically, I think the byproduct of this is just going to be that they're going to throw everything and the kitchen sink to try and turn this around leading to 2027, which I think will see them really turn the screws on trying to grab some of the guys from rugby league, which inevitably means exciting rugby, because rugby league is just the kind of rugby players they tend to produce are just very flashy and have an interesting skill set. So that's going to be exciting. That's going to be an interesting byproduct, because I think if they were in a better position, maybe they don't go out and push the boundaries of trying to get better by 27. And it'll be interesting because obviously now with the factor of them being in the same side of the draw with New Zealand, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, or in the same group, even as New Zealand. That's going to be interesting as well.
Nice. Well, Dom, thanks for the catch-up. Thanks for 2025.
Yeah.
We look forward to 2026 and a lot more chats on this couch in particular, but maybe also from abroad, as we will be traveling to South Africa in a week's time. So we will be reporting from there. But I think before that, we're probably going to take a week off.
Yeah.
Maybe 2, depending on the situation. But
I think you'll see us in the new year. And a big thank you from me. There's been some growth in the channel, people responding, commenting, engaging with us. Special shout out to Sylvain.
Yeah.
I believe that's how you pronounce his name, a French rugby fan who's been giving us all his insights and a lot of valuable information via email. So please do engage with us. That's what we want to do. We rugby fans, we want to talk about it, which led us to doing a podcast because we love to talk about rugby. So if we can do that in the comments, you can also call me names in the TikTok comments. I don't care. As long as you're engaging, that's what matters. So thank you very much to everyone that's followed, liked, subscribed, and all of that. And yeah.
Have a happy festive season and a successful 2026.
Ciao.
See you next year. Bye.